Alright everybody, it's another episode of Butt Crack Cycles. Usually this channel is about old Harleys, but I've been starting to do some videos about other things that I do in my life. And today we're doing some tractor stuff. Got this old Oliver out here behind me. I recently bought this tractor, and if you saw my video about buying it, you will know that I bought this kind of running. It ran long enough that I could see that the PTO would engage and actually turn, and that the 3-point hydraulics worked and go up and down, but it doesn't really run very well at all. The guy I got this from said that he attempted to rebuild the carburetor, but that he didn't know what he was doing, and he didn't know anything about carburetors really, and he thinks he screwed something up on the float. And I'm almost positive that he did, because as soon as you turn the fuel on to the carburetor bowl, it just starts pouring out of where I've got that red rag stuffed out of the inlet to the carb. This tractor has one of the old Marvel Schebler, I'm not entirely sure how you say that, carburetors. It's just an updraft carb, which is pretty common on older gas tractors. Stuff like old Farmalls and Fords use updraft carbs, and there's not really very much to this. In order to get it off, we just need to undo our fuel inlet line, make sure the fuel's cut off so we don't make a big mess, and then take loose our 2 mounting bolts to the intake manifold flange. So I'm going to grab a couple wrenches and get started on that. And hopefully that's all it takes to revive this old tractor. Just a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of carburetor work. There's a lot of other stuff that needs to get done to this tractor. Right now I just want to get this thing to run. So I'm going to set the camera down somewhere dry, grab some wrenches, and start yanking this carb off. Alright, so I've got the carburetor brought inside my workbench. Really the hardest part of this was just getting the throttle linkage undone, but in all honesty this was less than a 5-minute task getting the carburetor off. Right away I already see 2 things that are wrong with it. The first is right here on our inlet flange. You might notice that we've got double gaskets. I'm almost positive this does not call for 2 gaskets here. Other thing is the fuel inlet fitting right here. It's still pretty loose, so I'm probably just going to go ahead and take it all the way out. Oh boy. Oh, that's not helping. Looks like there's a little small screen. Let's see if I can zoom that up. There, you can see that there. There's a little small inlet filter. Not only is it kind of smashed up, it's also disgusting, so that's no good. He did give me this, which is whatever is left, I suppose, of his carburetor kit that he bought. So let's open this up and see what we got inside. Oh, apparently this is a Marvel Schebler. I thought it was Schebler. I was just reading that off of what's stamped there on the inlet flange. So excuse me earlier for mispronouncing this. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a screwdriver and knock our bowl screws loose, and we'll take this top plate off, and then we can get in there and look at our float. I'm honestly surprised that these weren't super duper tight. The inlet manifold, intake manifold bolts, those 2 9/16, well, it's a 9/16 nut, 3/8 hardware. That stuff was really tight. Sweet. Well, there's another issue just right off the bat. Not going to come through well on camera, but you can see all that sort of green, grungy gunk in the bottom of this carb. Doesn't look like this was cleaned out very well, but that's no big deal. We can throw this in a dunk tank or just hose it out with some brake clean and take care of that. Pull the pin out, pull the actual float out. I want to check this to make sure that it doesn't have a pinhole in it and that it's not sinking. Yeah, there it is right there. It shows a little clip to hold your needle in. So that was just completely missing. So I got us a little plastic container of water and our float. I'm going to drop it in. And the float floats, which is good. That's test number 1. But the second thing I'm going to do is take a screwdriver or something and just hold it underwater and make sure there's no bubbles coming out of it. which I do not see. So it looks like our float is watertight. Bloop. And actually does float. Okay, so as I'm putting this back together, there's the float with the needle and the clip that was left out, now reinstalled. So I'm going to clean out the carburetor really good, pull the jets out of it, etc. Clean everything, make sure we're not missing anything else, and then put this back together. Carburetor's back together, got everything cleaned out, blown out. Got that double gasket situation solved on the top. And the last thing I want to show y'all before we put this on is that sometimes the float can hang inside the bowl of a carburetor. I'm not sure if that's a real big issue on one of these particular models, but I have seen it enough before on just carburetors in general that usually what I do is flip it upside down. I don't know if it comes through on camera. But you hear when I'm shaking it around, you can hear that float bouncing up and down inside of the bowl. So you know that the float's not hung on the side of the bowl, and it's not gonna, you know, let this thing overflow with fuel. I'll just put that on finger tight for right this second, so it'll kind of hold itself while I weasel the throttle linkage around. I'll also note I'm about 1 turn out on the idle mix and about the same on the main. And basically touched the throttle stop post, and then after I touched it, I turned it in about 2.5 turns from there. I'm gonna walk around to the other side of the tractor and turn the fuel on. We'll see if it comes pouring out of the carb. Not leaking, we're gonna try it. Make sure we're in neutral. Choke. Go. A little bit of throttle. Right, so hang on. So I think we're probably going to pull the carburetor back off. Obviously, if you give it an external source of fuel, if you just keep spraying it with ether, it stays running, and you can, if you're good with the spray can, you can actually make it sort of have a fairly steady, smooth idle. So it appears that we have both compression and spark. So I walked away from this for a little bit and got thinking about it. I was like, well, you know what? In my haste and excitement, I didn't actually check the float height setting on this thing. So I pulled the carburetor back off and took the float bowl back off. And again, I don't have a shop manual quite yet for this, but a little bit of Googling told me that we should be 1/4 of an inch. So we've got this. This is calibrated in 30 seconds. We need to be 8 30 seconds. And we're pretty much dead on that. We also have a visitor. The neighbor's cat. So I got thinking about other stuff that could be the problem here other than fuel. And decided I wanted to do a compression test on this thing. I have, what the heck? Not 13/16. Oh, they must be 7/8. That's nice. Anyways, I have seen before on an engine, this is something I've seen on 2 strokes, but I guess it's possible on a 4-stroke too. Ether is much more combustible than gasoline, and so I guess it is possible that something could have low compression and it's enough to combust ether, but not enough to combust gas. It doesn't take that long to do a compression test, assuming you have the right spark plug socket to get the spark plugs out. So I'm going to do that really quick, and then we can at least just like eliminate that off the table of issues that are going on here. Assuming this passes, then probably what I'm going to do is put the carburetor back on and try and run this thing from an external fuel source. The gas doesn't smell terrible, but it also doesn't smell great, so it's very possible that I might just be chasing my tail over some bad gas. But let's first do a compression test and see what we come up with. Goes the cat trying to get the chickens. It's a backyard nature show. Come here. Leave him alone. Come here. Come here. Ugh. Side note, we were already we were already going to replace these plugs. These are pretty grungy. I'm sure that's not helping the situation here. Gauge is installed, so we're going to spin it over. There's no carburetor on it. You usually do a compression test with the throttle wide open anyways. It's about 135 on that cylinder. I don't know what the spec is, but just based off of prior experience, it's actually pretty good, I would say. Yep, so number 4 is like 145. About the same, 145 or so. It's probably our lowest one. Oh, it's like 125. I don't think that's low enough to stop it from running, especially when you got the other 3 looking pretty good. So it's getting dark. My neighbor across the street actually just texted me. He says he's got a rattle in his 6.4 Power Stroke Ford. Wants me to come look at it real fast and tell him what I think about it. So I'm probably gonna clean up the tools and walk across the street and tell him he needs the 12 valve, come and swap it. And yeah, we'll pick back up on this in a couple of days. I've got 2 pretty solid days of work booked up for the next 2 days, so this is gonna have to wait a few days, but we're making some progress, I think. And by the end of this episode, we're gonna have a running tractor. Okay, so it's a couple of days later. It stopped raining and I finally have some time to get back on this tractor project. I grabbed some spark plugs, so I'm going to set these down on the trailer right there next to the tractor, and we're gonna walk back to my shop. I've got the battery charging on this thing. I've let it sit on the charger the past few days. Seems like this battery actually will hold a decent charge. A hawk in the tree. Anyways, but I thought it would be a good idea to make sure it has a nice, good, fresh charge on it, because we're probably going to be cranking the starter over a whole lot. And I went ahead and pulled the carburetor back apart, threw it in a dunk tank this time, and instead of just being lazy and trying to blow out the jets and such, I'm going to actually pull all the jets and everything out and just go through it, make sure it's really super clean, and then we'll go back and see if we can get this thing to run. And I've got a couple other things to try, but at the very first we're going to just throw a set of spark plugs in it because I know it needs it. I don't think the spark plugs is what's stopping it from running. It apparently has enough vacuum to suck the ether through the engine and then combust it, and we verified that it has good compression. So I'm almost positive we're just chasing a fuel issue, and it might even still just be float level, but I'm gonna walk in here and get started on that. Oh, into the deep depths of grossness. Yeah, I already pulled the top half out. We'll go hose this down with some brake clean, some compressed air, and take it apart again for the second time. Hopefully this gets it. So I've got the carburetor back on, and I took all the jets out, everything, cleaned everything out really well. Like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and throw a set of spark plugs in this thing while we're here. Throw some new plugs in, and we'll grab the battery, toss it back in, and go from there. Go full choke. Part throttle. Okay, so after all of that, seems that the only way this thing will even try to run is full throttle, full choke, and a little bit of starting fluid right there at the start. So I've unplugged the coil wire on the other side, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hand choke this engine and see how much it's sucking my hand in. Just make sure we don't have some massive vacuum leak on the intake manifold. My guess is that this is gonna be fine. It'll suck my hand in pretty good just because it will pull that ether through. But we'll do this really quickly. I'm gonna do it at first with the choke off and the throttle shut. Again, if you're gonna do this, undo the coil wire so you don't accidentally backfire something through the intake and catch yourself on fire. Oh yeah, sucks my hand up good, and when it does, y'all saw that fuel that came pouring out. It's like I was able to make a good suction on that inlet and suck some more fuel through this thing. Okay, so y'all can see that I've got the bowl plug removed, and I put a hose nipple in here and some flex tubing. I ended up having to just splice two pieces together. I didn't have one single run of clear. So I'm gonna tuck this back behind the throttle linkage and run around to the other side and turn the fuel on, and then I'll come back and we'll take it out and we'll see. Should let us get some sort of visual representation of how high up in the bowl the fuel level actually is. Well, it depends on how you hold the hose, really. I hold it tight around there, it's low. I guess I am sort of putting it at an angle every time I lean it over. I probably want it looped 90 degrees. This is where having this splice kind of stinks, but I think this is at least, trying to see if I can jiggle it, see how far down that hole it is. I'm thinking we're probably somewhere around in here, because you gotta lean it a good ways before it starts coming up. So maybe we're a little bit low. I don't know. I don't know that that should be so low that it can't run, but it might actually be. So I guess now we're gonna pull the carburetor back off and bend the float tabs and see if we can raise the float height just a hair. I think I'm gonna try and just grab them. I don't want to grab them up too close to the solder joints. So I need to go that way just a hair. I don't think this is gonna solve it, and I think I'm wasting my time, but I am gonna try it. Yeah, so that was pretty much a waste of time. Had to try it, but again, wasn't expecting anything. Obviously, for some reason, we cannot get fuel from here to in there, and we have everything that we should have. I'm gonna try an external fuel source. I guess it's possible that this gas is just old and crappy. It doesn't really look it or smell it terribly. The guy said it's only a few months old, but I guess you gotta not trust anything anybody says, right? So I drained some gas out of this thing. Pour it out in my fire pit. See if it's at all flammable. I bet it is. Let's try this again, kids. Man like fire. Gas can. Man, isn't that something? I actually got the thing to run. Who would have thought? That gas didn't really look too terribly bad. That bucket I was pouring it out of was pretty dirty, full of some used oil. But apparently that was bad enough for this thing not to run, because that's literally all I changed. I didn't even drain all of it. I just drained like most of it and put in some fresh. So I'm probably going to put in some more fresh on top of that. I really want to move this thing off of the trailer, but I don't want to do it with the trailer not hooked to a truck, and I'm kind of running out of time today, so it's probably going to have to be a project for tomorrow. But I'm excited. At least this thing will start and run. Doesn't seem like it takes throttle the best, but it does run. Yeah, I want to go crank it up again, just see if it'll start. What the heck, might as well, right? Done a little more playing around with this. Seemed like I've gotten the idle down a little bit more, and a little adjusting. It seems like I can get it to take throttle decently. Not perfect, but it's a start. Looks like the temperature gauge actually works. The tach does not. I haven't really paid any attention to the hour meter though. It doesn't really matter. Fuel gauge does not. But hey, I have a running tractor for the most part. Let's see if I've got it idle too high. I think these are supposed to be like 400. See the diesels when I shut it down. Yeah, a little bit. So might be a little bit lean, might be idled a little bit too high. Maybe the timing's a little bit off, but we've got to start. So I'm gonna clean my tools and go inside. I'm kind of at the end of my scheduled time today that I could actually spend working on this. And maybe tomorrow I'll hook my truck to it, to the trailer rather, and get this thing off of it, drive it around the yard some, let Kenneth drive it. He's gonna be psyched. So Kenneth and I drove the tractor around a little bit in the backyard, and we moved it to the front yard and put some Christmas lights on it. Still got some work to do to it. Go be with your sisters. Yeah, it's far from, you know, done, but at least it does run. I had to start it off with a little bit of ether. I imagine that I just need to get the rest of that bad gas out of there. Like I said, I didn't drain it all, I just poured some fresh on top of it. And maybe I still have some more carburetor work to do, but at least the tractor is movable. Other things that need immediate attention, obviously, like I said, it needs a full service, and the PTO is engaged all the time. It doesn't matter if you mash the clutch all the way down, PTO shaft just keeps on spinning, and it doesn't matter where you put the PTO lever. If you try and disengage it, it stays running. So I have ordered a shop manual. I found one like on eBay that comes on a thumb drive, but it's not here yet. I'm sure there's an adjustment procedure in there. Looking around online, sounds like there's just a plate you can take off and spin it around, and there's a pin that you can, something with a pin and some adjustment in there that you can make. So I'll wait till the shop manual gets here. Honestly, the tractor's just going to sit in the front yard with Christmas lights on it until after Christmas, so I'm not too worried about it, but it's a win for me. We started with something that didn't run and are ending the video with something that does run and move and drive around under its own power. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. If you're a motorcycle person and that's why you're here, thanks for sticking with me as I do other non-motorcycle things. And if you're a tractor person who just found your way here, I hope you'll subscribe and stick around on this channel because there's going to be more tractor and agriculture sort of stuff here in addition to the old Harleys. Okay, bye y'all. See you on the next one.